Every detail matters in the courtroom. Every perspective demands fairness. Know your legal protections and pursue genuine justice.
Ma'am, this is my car. Can you please step aside so I can get in?
No! I saw you walking up. You don't belong in this car. I called the cops. They're on their way.
I understand your concern, but this is my vehicle. Look, unlocked. Lights blink. That's my key fob. I'm asking politely. Let me in.
You stole that key. You're not fooling me.
Ma'am, I own the car. I have the registration. You're blocking me. Please.
It began as a routine afternoon in a busy parking lot until a stranger's voice sliced through the air. "Stop! That's not your car!" In seconds, a black man found himself boxed in by a woman who refused to move, refused to listen, and refused to consider the truth. By the time police arrived, her accusation had already triggered consequences she could no longer control. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Her name was Karen Willoughby, 47, a self-appointed neighborhood guardian with a documented history of calling security on people she thought didn't belong. Most days she wandered through this suburban plaza, convinced she could spot danger before anyone else did. But on this particular afternoon, her confidence wasn't protection. It was a fuse, and she was about to light it. She had just finished loading groceries into her SUV when she noticed a man walking briskly across the lot toward a deep blue sedan. At first, she didn't think much of it, until he pulled a set of keys from his pocket. Something in her snapped into alert mode, and in her mind, alert meant confrontation. It didn't help that earlier that week she had told 2 different store clerks that cars go missing around here because nobody pays attention. So when she saw him, she didn't hesitate. She left her SUV running, swung the door open, and marched straight toward him. The man she was walking toward was Derek Cole, 33, a software consultant who spent most of his time solving problems, not causing them. He was wrapping up a long day of client meetings and had stopped by the plaza only to pick up a replacement laptop charger. His mind was already on the drive home, the dinner he needed to reheat, the emails waiting to be answered. The last thing he expected was someone sprinting toward him like he'd just broken into a bank. He barely had time to press the unlock button before Karen slid herself between him and his car door. "Step away from that vehicle," she ordered, her voice sharp, rehearsed, as if she'd practiced this line in the mirror. Derek blinked, unsure whether she was talking to him or someone behind him. "Ma'am, excuse me, I'm just trying to get into my car." "That's not your car," she snapped. The accusation hit the air with a force that made 2 bystanders turn their heads. Derek let out a small, confused laugh, one of those laughs people make when the situation is too bizarre to process. "I literally have the keys," he said, holding them up. They jingled softly, metallic proof that should have ended the entire conversation. But with Karen, it only made things worse. "Anyone can have keys," she countered. "I've seen videos. Thieves are getting smarter." Derek tried to step around her, but she shifted her stance, widening her legs, anchoring herself like she was guarding government secrets. When he moved left, she mirrored him. When he moved right, she cut him off again. "You need to back away," he said, his tone still calm but now threaded with irritation. "You're blocking my property." Karen wasn't listening. Not to him, not to logic, not to the reality in front of her. She pulled out her phone, her thumb already punching numbers. "Oh, so now you're getting nervous?" she said triumphantly. "Good, because the police are on their way. I'm reporting a theft in progress." Derek froze. She actually called. He looked around, hoping someone nearby would jump in, say something, confirm what he already knew, that this was ridiculous and she had gone too far. But the witnesses weren't sure what to do. One woman filmed from behind a row of carts. A teenager whispered something to his friend, but nobody stepped forward. Karen took the silence as validation. "You're not going anywhere," she said. "I'm keeping this car right here until authorities arrive." She wasn't bluffing. She walked back to her SUV, turned it sideways, and blocked the narrow lane that led to Derek's sedan. Her vehicle formed a perfect barricade, tight enough to trap him, dramatic enough to announce her righteousness to everyone watching. Derek's disbelief slowly shifted into something heavier. He had heard stories like this. He had seen them online. But standing in the center of it, accused, boxed in, treated like a criminal for touching his own car, was a different reality entirely. He raised his voice slightly, not out of anger, but necessity. "Lady, you need to move your car. You're making a mistake." Karen folded her arms. "We'll let the police decide that." A statement meant to intimidate him, but instead it planted the first seed of the downfall that was already on its way. And while Derek didn't know it yet, her lie, and the way she doubled down on it, was about to cost her far more than the embarrassment she thought she was avoiding. It would cost her her peace, her reputation, her money, and the one thing she valued most: control. If you believe that standing up for what's right can change everything, share this story and let others know that justice can prevail. By the time the first distant wail of sirens floated across the parking lot, the situation had already hardened into something dangerous, something Derek Cole knew he needed to handle carefully. He stood beside his sedan with his hands visible, his back straight, every movement deliberate. The last thing he wanted was for officers to arrive and misread the scene that Karen had already polluted with her story. Karen, meanwhile, paced in front of her SUV like she was guarding a crime scene. Her breathing was fast, her chin lifted, her eyes darting to the crowd forming around them. Every few seconds she glanced back at Derek, as if waiting for him to run. He didn't, but she wanted him to. She wanted proof that her suspicion wasn't just suspicion. "You're awfully calm for someone caught red-handed," she said, with a sharp smile that didn't match her trembling hands. Derek didn't respond. He'd learned long ago that some people didn't argue to uncover truth. They argued to reinforce the story they already believed. Anything he said would be twisted the way she needed it to be. But someone finally stepped forward. A young woman in a floral blouse, maybe early 20s, gripping her phone with nervous fingers. She looked between Derek and the car, then at Karen. He opened it with a remote key," she said softly. "I saw the lights blink. I think he really does own it." Karen spun toward her. "You think? That's the problem. People think and then walk away while criminals take advantage. I'm not letting that happen." The young woman flinched. She stepped back into the small cluster of witnesses gathering nearby, people unsure whether they were watching a misunderstanding or something much uglier. Derek checked the time. The police would be here in less than a minute. He tried again. "Look, when they get here, I'm showing them my registration. Then what? You apologize? You move your car and go home like nothing happened?" Karen scoffed, offended by the idea herself. "You won't have anything to show, and when they cuff you, I hope you finally learn that actions have consequences." She believed this. Completely. And that certainty, more than the accusation itself, made Derek's stomach tighten. People like her didn't back down. They escalated. And the proof came seconds later when her phone rang again. "Officer, yes, I'm still here," she said loudly, as if performing for the crowd. "Yes, he's staying near the vehicle. Yes, I blocked him. Of course I blocked him. He was about to leave. No, he doesn't look armed, but he's being aggressive." Derek's head snapped up. Aggressive? He hadn't taken a single step toward her. Not once. He'd barely raised his voice, but there it was, a word she weaponized without hesitation. The small audience murmured again. A few exchanged uneasy glances. They could all see the truth, but none wanted to insert themselves between a lie and the police speeding toward it. Karen ended the call with a satisfied nod and tucked the phone under her arm. "They'll be here any second. You better hope they're nicer to you than I am." His heart pounded now, not from guilt, but from the knowledge that arriving officers often made split-second judgments based on the loudest voice in the room. And right now, that voice belonged to a woman who had already rewritten the story in her mind. The first patrol car glided into view, lights flashing although no siren was running. It turned into the parking lot slowly, almost cautiously, as if anticipating chaos. Karen's posture straightened instantly. She waved both hands in the air, signaling them like she was an eyewitness to a felony in progress. "Over here, officers, over here!" Derek didn't move. His fingers tightened around his keys, grounding himself. The cruiser came to a stop. Two officers stepped out, one older, one younger, both scanning the area. The younger one's eyes went straight to Derek, landing on him the way Karen expected them to. "There!" Karen shouted, pointing so aggressively her arm shook. "That's him! He tried to steal that car!" The older officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, we'll get your statement. Let's approach this calmly." But Karen wasn't calming down. She was energized. Finally, an audience trained to listen. "He was breaking in," she said. "He was trying to drive off when I caught him. I blocked him with my SUV." The younger officer nodded slowly, taking her words at face value. Derek exhaled. "Officers, this is my car. My registration is in the glove compartment. My insurance card is in my wallet. She blocked me here because she assumed I was stealing. Karen's laugh was sharp. Listen to him scrambling now. The officers stepped between them. Tension thickened, stretching the air almost to breaking. The older officer looked at Derek's keys. Sir, is there any reason you can't immediately produce proof of ownership? There's every reason, Karen cut in, trying to maintain control. Thieves don't carry registration for the cars they steal. The officer shot her a warning look. Ma'am, please stop interrupting. That surprised her. For the first time, her expression flickered. The absolute control she felt moments ago paused, just for a second. Derek kept his hands visible. I can show you everything, but I'd appreciate not being treated like a suspect for trying to unlock my own car. The younger officer stepped closer, studying him, but the older officer turned back to Karen. You said you saw him breaking in? Her mouth opened, son, but nothing came out. Because she hadn't seen anything. She had acted on instinct, one trained not by evidence but by bias. The crowd watched silent, waiting for the next moment that would tip the scene one way or the other. And that moment was coming fast. A moment that would expose everything she tried to defend. A moment that would begin the collapse she never saw coming. The old officer's question hung in the air like a spotlight aimed directly at Karen. You said you saw him breaking in. For the first time since the confrontation began, her confidence wavered. Her mouth tightened, her eyes blinked rapidly, and the certainty she had been yelling just moments earlier no longer sat so comfortably on her face. I saw him walking up to the car, she said finally, her voice thinner now. And he looked suspicious. He was in a hurry. People who own cars don't usually run towards them like that. Derek let out an incredulous breath. I wasn't running. I was trying to beat the rain. A low rumble of thunder rolled in the distance, almost as if backing him up. The younger officer shifted uneasily. The story Karen gave them over the phone, aggressive suspect, possible vehicle theft, suspicious behaviour, was slowly unravelling under the weight of basic logic. But lies like hers worked because they arrived first, loud and unquestioned. The older officer continued pressing. Ma'am, did you see him tampering with the vehicle, using tools, forcing the door, breaking glass? Karen hesitated again. Bystanders leaned in slightly. This was the first time the power dynamic had tilted away from her. I didn't need to see that, she said tightly. Sometimes you just know when something is off. I was protecting the community. The older officer took a slow breath. Not angry, not accusatory, but the kind of breath that precedes something serious. Ma'am, an accusation like this requires evidence. You physically blocked his vehicle. You made a claim of an active crime. Those are significant actions. So I'm asking you again, clearly, what did you actually see him do? This time she had no answer, only frustration. Her silence told the officers, and everyone watching, everything they needed to know. The older officer turned to Derek. Sir, you said you can provide proof of ownership? Yes, Derek replied, already reaching for his wallet with slow, deliberate movements. My registration card is in the glove compartment. The car will unlock when I press this. He lifted the key fob, looking straight at the officers. I'm doing this so no one misunderstands my actions. That sentence alone showed the weight he had been carrying. He pressed the button. The car chirped. Lights blinked. The locks clicked open, a confirmation that should have ended the nightmare 30 minutes earlier. But the older officer nodded. Go ahead. Derek opened the door, retrieved the registration and handed it over. The officer compared the VIN with the number on the windshield. It was a perfect match. Derek owned the car. He had always owned the car. The truth was simple. The lie had always been complicated. The younger officer exhaled, long and uncomfortable. The energy in the slot of parked cars shifted. The tension that had built into a storm now began unravelling thread by thread. The older officer walked back to Karen. Ma'am, the vehicle belongs to him. Karen blinked rapidly again. Are you sure? She whispered, almost desperate. The officer's expression flattened. Yes, very sure. She looked around the lot, scanning for someone, anyone, to defend her logic. But the bystanders she expected to support her now avoided her eyes entirely. One woman shook her head in silent disbelief. The teenager who had filmed earlier slowly lowered his phone. The ground she had stood proudly on only minutes ago was gone. "This is insane," she muttered. He looked like he didn't belong near that car, that's all. I was trying to prevent a crime." The older officer's tone sharpened. "Ma'am, what you did was escalate a situation without cause. You blocked him in, called 911 under false pretenses, and gave misleading information about his behaviour. That's not preventing a crime, that's creating one." Her face drained of colour. She tried to salvage her narrative. Well, maybe he stole the registration too. But even she didn't believe that, and the officers weren't entertaining it. "We're filing an incident report," the older officer said, "and we'll need your full statement. False reporting is a chargeable offence. You should be aware of that." Her eyes widened. "A charge for trying to help?" "Helping requires evidence," he said calmly. "You didn't have any." The younger officer approached Derek then. "Sir, I'm sorry you had to go through this. It wasn't enough, not nearly enough, but it was the first acknowledgement of harm in the entire ordeal." Derek nodded stiffly. "I appreciate it." But Karen wasn't done spiralling. She stepped toward Derek without the officer's permission, her voice trembling with equal parts anger and humiliation. "You could have cooperated better. You made this worse." Derek stared at her, stunned. "Cooperated? Lady, I tried to get into my own car. And I tried to protect the neighbourhood." "From what?" he shot back. "From me? From the possibility that a black man opening his own car couldn't possibly be the owner?" Her lips pressed together, forming a thin, brittle line. The truth she had spent years avoiding was suddenly unavoidable. The older officer stepped between them. "Ma'am, that's enough. Please step back." She finally did, but the damage was irreversible. The crowd had seen everything, the officers had documented everything, and her name, her reputation was now tied to a lie that would follow her far beyond this afternoon. And as the officers escorted her to the side to begin a formal statement, Karen realised something she had never expected. This wasn't going away quietly. This wasn't ending with her victorious. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. This was the beginning of consequences. Consequences that would reach her job, her community, her finances, and eventually a courtroom she never imagined seeing from the defendant's seat. The parking lot had quieted, but the aftermath had only begun. An hour after the officers verified Derek's ownership and took Karen's official statement, the incident report was already circulating through internal channels, and within 24 hours it would spread much further than she ever expected, far beyond the plaza, far beyond her neighbourhood, and far beyond her control. It started with the teenager's video. He uploaded it that evening, not with commentary, not with edits, just the raw moment of Karen blocking Derek's car, calling him a thief, and the officers confronting her lie. The clip had everything: tension, injustice, disbelief, and the unmistakable moment where her certainty cracked like glass. By morning, it had over 600,000 views. Karen woke to dozens of text messages, missed calls, and a notification from her homeowners association. At first, she couldn't understand the barrage. Then she saw her own face frozen mid-shout on every social platform she opened. People didn't just watch the video. They dissected it, replayed it, analysed it frame by frame. In one clip, her voice trembled as she insisted Derek looked suspicious. In another, she doubled down even after the officers proved him innocent. And worst of all, people noticed the moment her lie died on her face, the microsecond her confidence collapsed in front of everyone. The internet had a name for her now, and it wasn't Karen. It was the blockade lady. Her workplace contacted her before noon. She worked as an administrative coordinator for a mid-sized local firm, a place where public image mattered and scandals ruined contracts. HR sent a neutral email requesting an immediate meeting, but the tone wasn't neutral. It was the kind of tone that prepares someone for the inevitable. She tried to explain herself on the call, insisting she acted to protect the community, but the video played in the background of the meeting room. Her employers didn't need her explanation. They had the truth in 1080p, and they had already counted the risk of keeping her. Within 8 minutes, she was placed on administrative leave. Within 24, she was terminated. But losing her job was only the beginning. 3 days after the incident, the police report officially listed her actions as false reporting, creating a public disturbance and unlawfully obstructing private property. Her attempt to frame herself as a vigilant citizen didn't survive the written record. Then came the civil notice. Derek didn't want revenge, but he wanted accountability. The unnecessary police interaction, the public humiliation, the psychological stress, and the fact that he couldn't even return to the plaza without remembering how quickly his ordinary afternoon became a threat. All of it had consequences. His attorney drafted a formal claim for damages. Karen's jaw trembled as she read the letter. $65,000 in compensation for emotional distress, reputational harm to Derek, and legal expenses. She felt the room shrinking around her. Her savings were nowhere near that. Her insurance wouldn't cover intentional misconduct, and her employer, the one she had proudly claimed would always back her, was gone. Neighbors spoke to reporters. Some were blunt, others simply distanced themselves. Parents removed her from the neighborhood watch group she once led aggressively. Her HOA requested a meeting regarding her behavioral pattern in communal spaces. Even the grocery store where the incident happened asked her not to return for the comfort and safety of all customers. The humiliation was thorough, public, inescapable. But the final blow came in a quiet moment on a late afternoon when she went to retrieve her mail. A woman she had lived next door to for 7 years, a woman she often bragged to about keeping the neighborhood safe, stepped out of her house and shook her head. "You did that to an innocent man," she said flatly, "and you're surprised this is happening?" Karen couldn't speak, because there was no defense left. Meanwhile, Derek found a different kind of closure. The officers who handled the incident reached out with a formal apology letter from the department. The plaza's management sent him a voucher and an apology of their own. And the civil case, now moving through the proper channels, gave him the assurance that the system could respond to harm without needing violence or anger in return. He didn't celebrate her downfall. He didn't gloat. He didn't revel in her humiliation. But he did feel something steady and necessary: validation. The truth had not only come out, it had stood firm against the lies someone tried to weaponize against him. And Karen, forced to confront the consequences of her own actions, realized something she never considered in all her self-appointed watchdog routines. Fear does not make someone right. Suspicion does not make someone guilty. Volume does not make someone honest. And lies, especially the kind spoken with conviction and prejudice, don't remain small. They grow. They spread, and eventually, they come back. Harder than anyone expects. Karen lost her job, her standing, her reputation, her comfort, and now faced thousands in legal consequences, all because she refused to entertain a simple truth. A black man unlocking his own car was never a crime. Her accusation didn't protect her community. It destroyed her credibility. And the most painful part? Everyone saw it happen. If you believe that standing up for what's right can change everything, share this story and let others know that justice can prevail.
Accountability is a shared responsibility, and facts are your ultimate protection. We appreciate your time and commitment to verifiable truth.